within a week. Today's session, we will have an introduction to what we are going to do throughout the week, and then we will set up our development environment. I am Vinayak Tekade. I'll be the host for your session. So let us go ahead. So now let us understand what we are going to go through in this whole event. We will be going through full stack development. So we need to know what is full stack development, right? So full stack development is designing and developing the complete architecture of the front end of an application and the back end of an application. So what is front end and back end, then you may ask. So front end is basically what you see in the website. So let us say you're going to a website, you scroll through their content, or else you register on a website. So you create an account over there. So you fill in a form over there, right? So all these details, the content, the form, or let's say even a picture, whatever you are able to see on a website is called the front end of an application. Then we have a back end of an application. So let's say you fill the form, but when you click next, it redirects you to a new account page. So in this new account page, how did it create your new account? You didn't see it happening. That is where the backend comes in. The backend consists of all the calculations that goes behind the screen and then give us an appropriate content on the next page. So here in the diagram, you can see what is a backend. The right hand side is the backend where we create APIs. So what is API? I'll get into that very soon. And then we have a database. In the front end, we have HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. We may use a framework like AngularJS as well over here. So all these front-end technologies come up as a script together, and then they create the full content of a website. And then when a user clicks on create account, let's say, so it is actually making an API call to the database, and it is telling database that okay, this is the information we got from the user, and we need to store it in the database so that our user is created. So this database is then storing the elements which a user inputs, and then it is giving an account, it is assigning an account to that user such that the user can proceed further, and then he can be redirected to a new page where he'll actually use the software. Now, this was all about full stack development, but why should you learn it? Well, you will get to master a lot of developer skills, which includes in the front end. Let's say for front end, you're in front end itself, you are learning HTML, CSS, JavaScript, and along with that, there are many frameworks for front end like React.js, AngularJS. All these things are really a must for a developer to know. Also, you will be learning many backend technologies as well, like various kinds of database, let it be SQL or NoSQL, or how to create APIs. All these skills are must for a developer. Then you will be unlocking way too many opportunities because a full stack developer knows front end and back end as well. And in the industry, we have separate developers for front end as well as back end technologies. So let's say if a position for front-end developer is open, then you can apply there as well. Or let's say for back-end is available, then even that is available. So a full stack developer knows too many technologies and therefore has too many opportunities as well. The third part is you are the backbone of the whole software. Since you will be knowing how the front end works and how a backend works, you're basically taking care of the whole loop of where the application is working, and you know each and every minute detail of the software. These minute details reveal a lot of information about your skills. So, and these skills you need to develop, and this actually describes everything about you, and hence you are the backbone of the whole software. You know how the whole flow works. You are taking care of so many things. Of course, you should be paid well, right? And in on an average, a full stack developer is paid, let's say for a fresher, is paid at least 80,000 per month. Let us move on ahead. So, all right, you know a lot of technologies, you have a lot of power, but then with great power comes great responsibilities. So, what are the responsibilities of a full stack developer. A full stack developer works along with product managers to ideate solutions. So a product manager is a person who takes care of how a product should be designed or how a product goes through the developers so that in the end they get the actual product they need. So, and these product managers should know how to make new products and how to ideate new solutions to a problem. And to help them, a full stack developer should know how an architecture must be built. The first responsibility is working along with product managers. Then the second responsibility is you should know how to develop a client side and a server side architecture of an application. So what is client side? Client side is basically the front end part. The front end part of an application, you saw how the diagram works in the previous diagram we had over here. This is the client side. The client side also has JavaScript, which is also programming language, and you can actually create conditions on which HTML should be created, or if an HTML is there, an element is there, how its color should be mentioned, how it should be styled. All these things will be covered by CSS, and this could be programmed when a user clicks on a button. Its let's say its color should be changed. Then JavaScript comes into play, and this all JavaScript needs processing. So all this processing is done on the client side. Then we have the uh, server side code. Server side is basically the backend. Backend also, each API requires how to create, how to actually store the data in the database, or is there any condition before storing. All those things comes into the server side code. So client side is the front end, and server side is the back end of the software. Now moving ahead, the fourth responsibility of an full stack developer is to create proper backend, and this backend should be having all the effective APIs. There shouldn't be any problem. Let's say you are storing some data in the database, you're creating a new account, then this API should have all the conditions possible so that the data is stored in the database. Or if there is an error, then tell the user to fill the form again so that there is no denormalization in the database, or there is no conflicting data in the database. And all this requires, if there is a problem in the database, then let's say you may get two replicated users, which is not good for us. So all these things you need to know how to write effective APIs. So this is also a responsibility of a full stack developer. Then again, the part of database, you should know how a database works, and you should know if there is some problem in the database, how should you fix it. You should be able to manage all the relation between a user and an account. Let's say a user has many properties to create an account. So all the relation between the application should be administered by the full stack developer. So that was the responsibilities of full stack developer. Let us move ahead. So all these responsibilities looks kind of confusing, right? Well, we all are here to teach you that itself. We will keep it to the point and crisp. So now let us talk about drum rolls, the Hall of Fame. We have been doing this for since 2-3 years from as of now, and we have many students who of us who created some amazing applications. So let us go and see them as well. So we have a tribute page of to Srinivas Ramanujan by Priya Poti. So let us see that. So all these things were used HTML and CSS to create it. So this is a page where we have the history of Srinivasan Ramanujan, and this took all this code to write, and we taught them to it. And let us move ahead and see another application. That we have a wedding planner survey by Prashanti. So here we have created a form over here, and this form basically takes all your name, email ID, age, and then who are you going to call for your wedding occasion. All these things are made using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Now we have another application, a product landing page. This is the most important part. A lot of full stack developers and front end developers are actually having to make so many landing page for their products. Basically, a product landing page is the page the user sees the first and knows what the product is. This is the most important part of a website. We have a toothbrush advertisement. So we have all the information of the toothbrush. We have the features of the toothbrush. We have a video embedded as well. So all these things are there, which a front-end developer needs to know. Going ahead, we are going to teach this in a week, and you can build it too. So now let us know how to build it. So today we'll be setting up our development environment. So a development environment is basically a place where you work. So we have a bunch of softwares which will be working alongside, and those softwares should integrate with each other. And yes, we will be knowing. Now let us see what are the technologies we are going to use. So uh, who can recognize these icons over here? Let us see in the chat. Right, Sadhna, that's Visual Studio Code. The fourth icon we have is the Visual Studio Code. It is an IDE which where we write our code, and we can have many extensions built for it. So yes, we will be using Visual Studio Code over here. Yes, Akhilesh, we have Node.js as well. Node.js is a backend scripting language which uses JavaScript to write server-side code. Yes, we will be using JavaScript as well over here. Yes, Ashwin, that's GitHub. Yes, this icon is GitHub. We will be using GitHub to collaborate our code and keep host our website or host our code online. And yes, we are using HTML and CSS as well. HTML and CSS both are scripting languages. We use HTML to create documents and we use CSS to style them. All right, Dharun, that's correct answer. We have Postman over here as our third icon. We will be using Postman to write effective APIs, which we'll be using Node.js to write effective APIs, and then we will be testing it using Postman. Postman could also be used to collaborate backend developers and see if their API is working properly or not. And yes, Gandesh, we'll be using Heroku as well over here. We'll be using Heroku to actually deploy our website so that the public can see it. And by deploying, I mean hosting our website online to a cloud server. So, all right, let us move ahead. That was an amazing response from you all. See what we have ahead. So, yes, all these development environments we talked about, we have to use all the software we talked about. We have to use it in our development environment. So, we'll have to install Node.js, Git, Postman, and Visual Studio Code. These all are straightforward installations, but if you're still stuck somewhere, you could go to Coders Capsule. It is my personal blogging website where I post about all the technical articles. So I have posted all this on how to install all these products over there. So the link will be in the description in the chat box. Then we'll need a few accounts as well. So these accounts consist of account on Heroku. All these things are not software. These are actually a platform as a service software. So yes, it is a software, but we don't need to install them. We just need to use them on the cloud. So first of all, we have Heroku. We need to create an account on Heroku, and we need an account on GitHub as well. And then we need a Google account. I guess everyone has a Google account. Then this Google account will be straight used for Firebase directly. So no need to actually use the Firebase to create an account on Firebase itself. You can link your Google account to it and just confirm a few agreements and licenses, and you're good to go. All right, then let us move ahead. We will be learning how to set up our code repository in Git and GitHub. Before moving on to setting up a code repository directly, let us discuss what is Git and GitHub. So is are Git and GitHub the same? Well, there is a lot of confusion among beginners about whether Git and GitHub are the same. They use these two terms together, and to discuss actually, Git and GitHub are not the same. So what is the difference between them? The difference is Git is a distributed version control system for tracking changes in your code during development, and it is designed for coordinating work among programmers. but it can be used to track changes in any set of files. Git is installed and maintained on your local system rather than your cloud. Well, that was too technical, right? We have a picture for that over here. So let us say there is one computer A and one computer B. They are both used by your friends. Let's say you have a friend who is working along with you on a project. So you are using computer A and your friend is using computer B. Both of you are writing code for the same file. So you are writing a code for the same file, and this you write some code and your friend writes some other code. What is the difference between two of them? And should we keep both their codes, or should we merge their codes, or should we just use any one person's code? All these things is managed by Git. So there is one server computer, let's say, where you both have to upload your code, or let's say instead of uploading, you just transfer your files over there, and then all this and this server computer can then be instructed to whether keep both of your files and merge it, or to actually keep any one person's file, or if there is a part of code which you both have written completely identical, it will detect that as well, and it will keep it in the file properly in the order of your code. And yes, Git not only does this, Git also provides versioning of your code. Let's say you write version 1 of the code, and then you feel that make some changes to it and store another version of the code. And then version 3 is basically you felt like version 2 wasn't good and you need to switch back to version 1. So that is also possible. Git can give you capability to switch back to your version 1 and then make changes to it to create version 3. All this is possible, and the final version or even any of these versions could be compared with your friend as well. All this thing is possible using Git. So what is GitHub then? So GitHub is designed as a Git repository hosting service, and it is exclusively cloud-based platform. It is used as an extension to Git, which provides collaboration over the cloud. It can also help us share code with others and give them power to make revisions. So yes, let us consider the old situation again. You are working on a project and you have two friends this time who are working along with you on a project. So obviously you will be using Git to maintain versions of your code, and then this version of your code is uploaded to GitHub, so that your friend who is very far away from you and it is impossible for you to create a local network with him, or let's say take your pen drive and go to him to see what are the changes you have between yourself, your code and your friend's code. What you do instead is you use Git to maintain the versions, and then you upload it on the cloud. Your friend does the same, and then GitHub runs a Git environment of its own, which will see the changes between your code, and again merging and all could be taken care from here itself. You could also use it as a social media where you share your code, you like each other's code, you copy your friend's code and keep it for your reference. You maintain your own version of your friend's code after taking his. All these things are some features of GitHub which are very useful. So how Git works. So this was the big picture which I discussed with you previously. So let us get into technicality. So let us say you're working in a project. So you create a folder, and inside that you store your files, right? So that folder is called your working directory. When you initialize it with Git, what will happen is it will start checking for versions of your code. It will keep noting of the changes you make to your code, right? And then when you put a command called git add, it will take it to the staging area. It will take all the files and store it in the staging area. And then here, if you wish to, you can also keep working on it and stage the files again. Let's say you had some other changes to make and you don't want to actually make a commit of it. And by commit, I mean a history or a version. Okay, instead of version, let us talk it in terms of history. So you're maintaining a history of your code. So a one version is a history of your code. At this point of time, your code was looking something like that. Then you make a change and then you commit the change. So you're making another version of your code. And that version we can refer to as history as well. So at another point of time, your code was looking something like this. This was the history. So you are by committing, you are actually making versions of your code. You're making you're making history. You're referring to a history. Let's say you're referring to a history where your code looked like this, and that is stored in the repository. So we have working directory where you're working on your files. We have a staging area where you are actually keeping it in as a verification purpose whether you want to actually make it into history or not. So you have a staging area like that, and then the final history is created in a repository by using git add and git commit commands. Let's move on. That was enough theory for today. Let us move on into our hands-on tutorial and let us discuss how actually Git and GitHub works, and let us set up our coding environment so that we will be using using this whole environment throughout our sessions this week. So I'll be opening VS Code over here, and this is how this was my previous code. So if we want to actually create a new environment, what we can do is we can create a new window using file and then window option. So if you start VS Code for the first time, it will look something like this. All right. So keeping this aside, let us go to GitHub now. And then we can click on this new button icon. So on clicking new, we can create a new repository over here. So this repository, let us name it Week of Web. Right, and then we can give an optional description here as well. So let us say this repository stores all the code during the sessions of Week of Web. And then if you wish to show it to your friends, then you can keep it public, or else you just want it for your own reference, then you can make it private as well. And if you wish to have collaborators as well, then you will have to do it in the settings options later. So for now, so I wish to show you this code. So I'll make up it as a public repository. And then this is asking whether we want to create this file in the beginning itself of a repository. So we can, yes, we'll have a readme file, and let's create a git ignore file as well. And since we will be working with Node.js, we will use the template of Node.js over here. All right, and this is a licensing feature. So what do you mean by license? Let us see in the chat. What do you mean by license? Yes, exactly, Janvi. We can use license for open source to document how open source should be distributed. License could be used to be open source. All right, Gandish, we have a response from him. License is used to make your project a fully fledged open source software. Yes, that's partly correct, I would say. Yes, we use our licensing for a fully fledged open source software, but we cannot just say it is only for open source. It could be used for private purposes as well. Basically, it describes how our code should be distributed. So if we click on choose a license and click on the template licenses, then we have so many licenses. And GitHub is usually used a lot for open source purposes. That's why I see so many people are talking about to make a fully fledged open source software. These all templates are just there so that on GitHub we can open source our code and we don't have to type it manually. But you could write your own license as well, where you describe the rules, where you want to how you want to distribute it, and if you are distributing it, then how should a person use it, or are there any restrictions on using it? Let's say I'm taking your software and I'm using it for my purpose. I make changes to it. So is changing the code allowed? That could be described in license. And if I'm changing the code, then how could I use it? Whether I'm using it for my business purposes. Then if you're using it for business purposes, then you want to describe whether you want to have a part of some revenue of your income, or whether you are giving it for free. or whether you are allowed to even sell your software. All those things comes under licensing. So I hope licensing is clear here. So we have MIT license over here. I want all of you to use my code freely without any complications or restrictions. So the MIT license is full of the freedom we can give to developers. So I'm going to use MIT license where you won't be restricted to use my code, you won't be restricted to take my code, you won't be restricted to even sell my code. That is the MIT license. We have many other licenses here. I would encourage you to go through it and read them and see how are they restricting, what are the restrictions. Let's say we have GNU GPL over here. This basically allows you to use the code or make changes to it, but you cannot sell the code. That is described in GNU GPG license. All right. So with that, let's create a repository. So now we have created this repository called Week of Web, and we have a README file. What does the README file do is it gives you a document where you can describe about your project, about this repository, and if you want to give any information about what code is going in there, what APIs you are using, how to actually use the code. If you want to contribute to this project, then how to contribute it, who are all your team members, all those things could be described in the README file. And if you notice, the extension is .md, and by .md we mean Markdown. Markdown is also similar to HTML. It is also a markup language, but it is much more simplified than HTML. Instead of having tag system, it could use some symbols. It could use symbols to describe the elements of HTML directly. All those things are possible over here. Also, now if you notice, we have in the GitHub homepage, if you are following me, then you will notice all the notifications of what are the activities of your friends, how are they working, if they started following someone else. All these things are there. So you could use it as a social media as well. And let's say I like someone's repository a lot. So let's say Arvind created this repository recently in 4 days ago. So if I like his code and I would like to contribute to it, so what I could do is he has given MIT license as well. I could use his code. So there is an option to fork the repository. So what does forking mean? Forking means using the repository, making a copy of this repository and storing it in your account. So if I click on fork and if I click on my name, I'm a part of other organizations as well. So it will show me in which organization do I want to store the code or make the repository. So it will create, and now if you notice, it will show my name and then the repository. And in my account, if I go to my repository, it will show that I have forked this from Arvind's profile. And this way I could maintain a version of this code. Since I have a copy of this code, I could make changes to it and I could work on it. And if I want, I could also tell Arvind, okay, I made these changes. Would you like to have these changes? So we have a feature called pull request where I can send Arvind a pull request that asking him so that I have made some changes to my repository. Please, would you like to integrate in your repository as well? And this is kind of a form where you are actually filling it so that you can tell him that what changes I have made. Would you like to have it? Since I haven't made any changes yet, it isn't there isn't anything to compare. It is telling me straightly. So GitHub can also use to see what are the changes made in your code and what are the differences between your friend's code and your code. So in this, GitHub is actually using Git to compare all of this. GitHub is actually just using it on the cloud instead of on your local computer. Now that we have GitHub set up, we have our repository as well called Week of Web. So what we can do is actually we need to work on it. So we won't be working it on directly on GitHub. Recently, GitHub released their code space feature, but let us not go to let's stick to our traditional methods for now. So we have this button called code, and here we have the clone option. Cloning basically means downloading the online code to your local computer, right? So this is the link to do that. So we are going to copy this, and then we will open our Git bash. So what do you mean by Git bash, you may ask? So in the slide, we had something called Git over here. and Git has a command line interface, which is called Git Bash, and it uses Linux code. It is also available on the command prompt Windows terminal. But yeah, we are going to use Linux for simplicity because Linux is used worldwide and it is open source and anyone can use it, and developers love using Linux. So moving ahead, let us open Git Bash. If you are still confused on how to download all the software, you can go to Coders Capsule link which is given in the chat. So right, let's open Git Bash, and we are presented with a window here where we can type the code we want or the commands we want. The basic commands. If you don't know Linux commands, there is another article on my blog. You can refer to that. So now let us move ahead and see what we are going to do with git clone. Right? We used git clone over here. Here we are in the main directory, the default directory that is my user profile. All right. I don't want to create the folder or the repository in my main account, and it will be a long process changing directories and moving into many directories. So Git Bash has another feature which integrates in opening Git Bash using right click directly on your computer. So what you could do is open the Windows File Explorer, and I can go here, and let's say I want to create my terminal over here instead. So I can just type open Git Bash here. So it is replaced by Git Bash here now in the recent version. So let's click on it, and it will open the same window with the directory change to coding. Right. So if we pwd now, we'll get our codings folder. Right. Now I want this Git the Git repository we created online on my local computer. So we have a command for that called git clone, and then I can press shift insert so that I need to copy it again. I'll go here and copy this link, git clone link, which will actually generate a HTTPS link for me so that Git Bash knows from where it should download, right? And then I can press shift insert to copy it and to paste it. And then when I click enter, it will start downloading all the files. And now we had only 3 files, so it was done very fast. And we can move into our folder. And if we list all the files we have a git ignore file which we downloaded from here. We have the license file, we have the readme file. But if you notice, we have another hidden folder called .git, and this is hidden because it starts with .git over here, and dot represents as hidden folder. So this .git folder has all the configuration files needed, which actually tracks of all the changes you're making to your file. And the software for that, where it actually compares all the code and checks where and all to push the code, where to upload the code. Since we have downloaded our code from here, if you are writing another code and we want to push it to our repository, to our GitHub repository, all those configurations will be stored in this .git folder. All right, so now that we are done with this, we can go to our Windows Explorer to check whether it is created, and yes, it is created. We'll open it and all the files are here. Now if you right click, we have similar feature of VS Code as well, Visual Studio Code as well. It is also called as VS Code in short. So we can click on open with VS Code here. Now I'll explain how VS Code looks and what all are its features. So on the left side, we have all the folder structure over here. So if we are to create any file, or let's say all the files we have, all the folders we have in this week of web folder, will be showing up over here. And to create a new file, we have this button called new file, and then we have another button called new folder, and this is the refresh button. All right, so all these files are there. If we click on any file, on let's say I click on readme file, so all the contents of that folder are shown over here. So if I were to open this readme file in Notepad, So I'll open it in Notepad. So all the contents of the what the code is written will be shown in the Notepad, right? But all this process of opening and selecting apps, all that could be avoided directly from here. It makes our development process faster. And then, since we are using Git Bash as well, this Git Bash as well, VS Code already has a feature where it integrates all this terminal into itself, and it can open any terminal you want. Let's say you are opening command prompt, that is also possible. If you're opening Git Bash, that is also possible. All these things are there in VS Code. So to open terminal, go to this terminal button and click on new terminal, and it will open a new terminal below like this. A shortcut button to open terminal is control and backtick button. So a backtick button is basically the button right above your tab button. So on your keyboard we have the tab button, right? And above that, beside the number 1 button, we have a backtick button as well. So if I if I hold control and press that backtick button, it will open and close the terminal like this. Then after that, let's say by default, since you're using Windows, it will open command prompt. So there is an option to select the default terminal you want to open every time. So there is this button called select default shell. If you click on that, you will get all the terminals installed on your computer, and it will show them. Inside this, we will want to use Git Bash over here. Now, every time what happens is it knows where you got the repository from. It knows how it should track all the files, but it doesn't know who did it. Like it doesn't know it knows that it's on our computer, but it doesn't know your email ID, password, and username. So we'll be configuring that now. So there is a command called git config, and this config is basically a file stored in your computer where it consists of all your properties. What is your username? What is your username? What is your email ID? How often would you use Git? And how is all the things working? And how all the information about you basically? It consists in Git config folder. So, and there is 3 types of such config folders. One is in your repository, that is in the .git folder. One is in your user accounts, that is in Windows you can have more than one users, right? So one is for your user and one is for the global one, where it could be used by any user, right? So we'll be storing it in the global folder so that it is visible all our across our repositories. We can create 5 repositories and all of them will be using the same username in that case, and it will be easier for us as well. So we have git config and double dash global, and then we can type user.name, and then here we can type our username which we used in our GitHub folder itself, GitHub repository itself. So if we go to folder here, you know my username. This is Vinayak Tekade without a space, and T is capital. So it's okay if we don't use capital as well, because URLs are stored in small cap itself. So if I type this, it will store my username. So if I switch to VS Code, I can type Vinayak Tekade like this, and it will store my username. Similarly, we can store our user email as well. So I can just copy the above line using, if we use the arrow keys, we can switch all the commands we use. Our history is present here. So in the beginning, like I use git clone command over here, and then I'm using the git config command. All this history is stored in our terminal. So we can use the arrow keys to switch between them. I type my email ID here. On typing this, it will store. Okay, 1 second. I made a typo over there. Okay, I could store this as my username, or okay, there is another change. I forgot to change the username. This is not username, this is my user email, right? It will store the user email of my file. So if I press enter now, it will store that as well. Now what happens is I find this one thing very irritating about Git, that it will keep asking me for password every time I use the git commit command. So to avoid that, we have one feature called caching of our password, which will store our password for the amount of time we mention. So that cache can be used till that much amount of time, and you don't have to keep entering your password many times. And then when that time is over, that cache is expired, then you have to enter your password again. Let's say I keep 10 days, and someone else accesses my computer after 10 days, he won't be able to use it. And 10 days is a very big time. So I'll keep it for 10 hours instead. So I can put git config. This also is stored in as a configuration, then global. And then we have credentials dot helper. And then I need to define how, what method, what are you storing the password or are you caching it, or you can directly just mention it here. But then if anyone opens your config file, then they will get to know your password. So instead, we'll be using the best method, that is the caching method. Cache, and then we give it a property of timeout, which is equal to 3600 seconds. And when I click enter, this also will be stored. Now let us see how the Git works, right? So let us make some changes to this README file. So I'll before starting it, I'll show you one command, that is git status command. We have git status command, which will show whether there are any changes in our file, or is our have we already made a version out of it. So as of now, there are no changes I have made. That's why it is saying the branch is up to date, and there is nothing to commit. Now, if I make some changes, let's say day one introduction and setting up your development environment. All right, now I will save this file by pressing Ctrl S. Now you will see this icon has been changed. That dot means the file is unsaved. So VS Code shows us whether our changes are saved or not by showing that dot. And as soon as I pressed Ctrl S, it saved it, and that icon changed to cross. And here also you can see that there is one M icon towards this file. That means that the file has some changes and it has been modified. So M stands for modified. And the same thing could be seen by using the git status command. And it says this readme file has been modified. So now that we have made changes, we can commit this change. We can create a version out of it. So I can type git commit, and I can type the message I want in front of this. So it is storing the message, but let's say I see this code after 10 days and I don't know what this version of my code, what were the changes I made. So I can write a message in front of it so that I can remember at that time. So I'll type day one title over here. And you could say updated readme file, because there can be more than one files which are updated. So updated readme file with day one icon, day one title. And on click and on typing enter, I see that these changes have been staged. And here we have created a change in our repository. All right, so before committing, what was the diagram I showed you? There is working directory, there is git add. Or do not forget that even if you have made changes to your code, it should go through the staging area, and then it should be committed, and then it could be going to repository. So we missed the staging area here. Never forget about adding the files to your staging area. So if I go to VS Code back now and I type git add dot, so what does this dot do? We are in the week of web folder, and when we type dot, it refers to the folder we are currently in. All right, so it will add all the files to the staging area, and it will show all the changes. So if I type git status now, it will show in red color that this file is ready for staging. And now if I run git commit command now, all these files will be created as a version. So I have enabled encryption on my profile. So I need to type the password. You may have to type in the Git password you have, GitHub password you have here. All right, and now you see that these files have been changed, and there were four insertions and one deletion, like that. And this is now a version of our code written in our local computer. And if we check our GitHub, these changes, if we reload also, these changes won't be present here because we haven't uploaded our code yet. This is only in our local system that we have created a version of it. So if I switch back to VS Code and type git push, it will start uploading all the changes I made. All right. And now if you head back over here and reload the page, you will see this line has been added. That is how Git and GitHub work together. And that is how we integrate the terminal in our VS Code as well. So we will be spending most of our time in VS Code itself. And what that is how we set up our development environment. And yes, if you face any issue or any problem, you could be you could go to Coders Capsule channel. So let us say I go to it. So I have a page here. I write many articles over here. So in this, we have this article called Week of Web. And in this Week of Web, I will be posting all the content. So worry not. If you haven't made any notes yet, don't worry. I have written it down over here. And then we have all the topics. I have divided all the topics and created separate articles out of them. So let us say you are confused about how to set up your development environment. Then what you could do is you could go over here in the first link and see what all softwares are needed to be installed and how to install them, what all the ticks are that are necessary, what is this option, what option should be selected at this step. All the step-by-step guide is present over here. So if you're done, then here you can set up your all the installation files. You could install all the softwares over here. And then let us say you have a doubt in setting up your GitHub. Then we have version control system, Git as the second article. And like this, as we go throughout this session, I'll be updating all the articles over here one by one. So if you go to basics of front end, then all about front end will be present over there. And we are talking about Git and GitHub. So let us see that. So yes, remembering code is hard, right? So don't worry. All those configuration commands we ran, all those commands are present over here. Like git clone is present here, and git status command is available here. Everything is available here. So all you have to do is go to this channel and go through all the things we performed today. And if you still have any doubts, you can always text us on WhatsApp. That is all for now. We will be learning HTML and CSS tomorrow. So we'll see you there. Thank you for joining and follow us on our social media platforms using this article or using this link. Thank you for joining today.